The armed forces of Ukraine avenged the Russian dictator for the attack on the cabinet of ministers in Kyiv. On the night of September 9, Ukrainian drones attacked Sochi, including an area located near President Putin's Bocharov-Ruchey residence. This happened shortly after a massive Russian strike on Ukrainian territory, which damaged the building of the Ukrainian cabinet of ministers in central Kyiv. And now there is information coming in that Putin was actually in his residence in Sochi when the drones of the armed forces of Ukraine attacked the region. Meanwhile, the Kremlin is not showing Putin, but they claim that everything is going according to plan. And at the end of this episode, I'll add one more piece of news for you as a bonus, giving you a spoiler. In Russia, they announced that all veterans of the so-called special military operation will be sent to develop Siberia. They argue Siberia needs development, so they suggested sending special military operation veterans to work there. You know, this is essentially exile. I'm Alexei Pechi, and today is September 9th. Let's discuss this topic together, focusing on the drone attack near Putin's residence. But before we start, I want to remind you that every day on this YouTube channel, several news and analytical stories about events around the world are released. So that you stay up to date with absolutely all the news, I recommend subscribing to this YouTube channel and liking this episode. So, the mayor of Russian Sochi, Andrei Proshunin, after the drone raid, shared photos on Telegram showing the destruction in the Adler district of the city, which is located south of Sochi International Airport. The Federal Air Transport Agency, Rosaviatsia, temporarily restricted flights at Sochi Airport on the morning of Tuesday, September 9. Interestingly, Putin's residence Bocharov-Ruchey is located in the central district of Sochi, less than 30 kilometers from the airport. And now, the press secretary of the President of Russia, Dmitry Peskov, stated that the attack did not affect Putin's work schedule. The president's schedule has not changed, it is being carried out as planned, Peskov said. But here an interesting episode occurred. According to Russian media, Vladimir Putin was in Sochi during the drone attack on the city on the night of Tuesday, September 9. Sirens went off there 3 times during the night. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation announced that supposedly 2 UAVs were shot down over the Krasnodar region. Another 15 drones over the Black Sea, 7 over Belgorod region, 3 over Koshchina, 2 over the occupied Crimea and 1 each over the Tambov and Voronezh regions. And as it turned out, the day before, Putin participated via video link in the emergency Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa meeting from Sochi. And that's according to the official statement. A few hours before that, an Il-96 300PU aircraft from the Rossiya flight squad with the tail number RA-96024 arrived in Sochi. This is confirmed by flight radar data. It was on this plane that dictator Putin flew to Alaska for a summit with United States President Donald Trump. And according to flight radar, as of 10 a.m. local time and Kyiv time on September 9, Putin's plane was still in Sochi. This suggests that Putin probably hasn't been taken out of the Bocharov-Ruchey residence yet. And Russian media remind us that in the past Putin used to stay there for weeks. But after Ukrainian drones started reaching Sochi, he practically stopped visiting the city. In November 2024, Putin did visit Sochi to give a speech at the Valdai Club. He likely stayed just 1 day and spent the night on the plane, the agency's publication says. At the end of August 2025, drone debris fell in Gelendzhik and caused a fire near another site linked to Putin, his palace at Kap Idekapas. The forest fire near the site was put out after 4 days. So, this Bocharov-Ruchey is the summer residence of the head of the Russian Federation, located in the forested valley of the Novi district in Sochi. Construction of the residence began back in 1934. The name Bocharov-Ruchey was given to the dacha after a small river that flows nearby. And starting from 1960, all the top leadership of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics vacationed here: Khrushchev, Brezhnev, Suslov, and so on. Socialist country leaders were also invited here for vacations. Now, the balding Putin occasionally sits there. This attack near the Bocharov-Ruchey residence was clearly the Ukrainian armed forces' response to Russia's attack on Kyiv. On the night of September 7th, Russia carried out a record-breaking strike on Ukraine. According to the Ukrainian Air Force, the Russian army used 823 aerial attack weapons, including 810 Shahed-type attack drones, 9 Iskander-K cruise missiles, and 4 Iskander-M and KN-23 ballistic missiles. The latter are North Korean. As a result of the attack, unfortunately, 3 people were killed, including a 3-month-old baby. More than 20 people were injured. The Cabinet of Ministers building in Kyiv was seriously damaged, where a fire covered 1,000 square meters, destroying the Prime Minister's office and the government meeting hall. Initially, it was reported that a drone had struck, but later, officials in Kyiv stated that the attack on the government quarter was carried out by an Iskander missile. In addition to the topic, I'll add another great piece of news from the Russian swamps. This news is a bonus. Participants of the so-called special military operation in Ukraine, upon returning from the front, should become builders of a new Siberian Russia, said Sergei Karaganov, a member of the Council under the President of the Russian Federation for the Development of Civil Society and Human Rights. Karaganov said all special military operation veterans should be exiled to Siberia to work on mega projects, because they don't want to see them on the streets of Russian cities and the authorities are afraid that these veterans might start a rebellion. But Karaganov wrapped it all up in a nice package. And according to him, Russia's 300-year European journey has come to an end, and now it needs to return to the roots of its history as a great power. And these roots, according to him, are in Siberia. Karaganov noted that the war with the West on the fields of Ukraine is beginning to enter its final stage. And it is already obvious that Russia will not achieve a victory like it did over the armies of Napoleon and Hitler, and the world will continue sliding toward World War III. From his point of view, in the absence of an unconditional triumph, the veterans of the special military operation should feel like builders of a new large-scale project, Greater Eurasia. And in the end, I will quote this Karaganov. The fighters who will be returning from the war should receive promising, highly qualified and well-paid jobs. While building new infrastructure in Siberia, many of them will stay there and become Siberians, just like it was during the construction of the Trans-Siberian Railway and Baikal-Amur mainline. This is the fate awaiting the so-called veterans, actually murderers, rapists, and occupiers who fought against Ukraine. They'll just be exiled to Siberia and told, listen, this is a privilege, you'll be building the mega project Greater Eurasia. That's how Russia manages to make exile to Siberia seem appealing. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye everyone. Subtitles.